Okay, greetings everyone. This is Josh with another episode of Horror Hangouts. And my guest today is Aaron, who is co-host of the A&B Horror Movies YouTube channel. How are you doing today, Aaron?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Oh yeah, excellent. And glad to have you on here. Your cohort wasn't able your cohort wasn't able to make it today in the
Yes,
UK,
yes.
Ben. So tell me, how did you and Ben meet?
Yeah,
And then
sure.
how did the channel start?
Yeah, happy to do that. But first, I do want to give him a shout out. My co-host Ben, unfortunately, couldn't be here today, but rather than reschedule, you've got me. So here we go. Gosh, how did we start our channel? So A and B horror movies came about. I'd say it was over 2 years ago. Ben and I met on Instagram. We started chatting about horror movies, collecting physical media, um, and originally we were just going to go live on Instagram. You know how you can do go live with
Right.
a friend and talk about horror movies, and then at the last minute we kind of got cold feet, let's say, and then we started talking. It's like, and we thought, why don't we try a YouTube channel? Um, and that's pretty much it. We met. We did finally meet in person in March in London. We did like a quick FaceTime call to see if we liked each other, and there was some, just to see if it would work.
Right.
Um, and we got off the call. We're like, well, that was cool. Let's do it. And then we started to think about, what do we call the channel? What are we going to call our show? We came up with sort of some horror themed
Mhm.
names, but then ultimately, I forget who came up with the idea. It's like, well, A and B. Why don't we just be A and B horror movies, because it's our initials? And there you have it. The rest is
Yeah.
history, I guess I
Rest
would
is
say.
history. And did you guys decide on what type of theme? Is there a specific theme to your guys's channel, or is it just anything you guys feel like talking about? Is there, specific topic you guys always like to hit on, I guess?
Yes. So we started doing interviews with directors, actors, writers. We've had a variety of different guests on. Usually, when we do the interview videos, kind of like what you're doing now, we
Mhm.
will prepare with questions and focus entirely on the guests that we're having on. Um, but then we do a lot of videos where it's just the two of us talking about a specific theme. Um, for example, we just did a video about the Alien franchise because the new Alien movie's coming out,
Right.
and we talked about all the Alien films and our thoughts on those movies. And we just sort of wing it. We don't script our videos. We just start talking, try to limit them to 15 to 30 minutes. We started having other guests on as well. We had Badger Phipps on recently to talk about, what was it, to talk about banned horror movies. So that was an
I
interesting
saw
video.
that one,
And
or a
oh, you did?
little bit.
Cool. Yes.
I watched a
I,
little bit, but I haven't watched all of it yet. But
that's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah. No, awesome. Thank you. And it was probably the only one we've done where actually I was a little bit uncomfortable about some of the films we were talking about. But there you have it. Yeah. So, ahead of the videos, we'll just say, why don't we do a video on this, like our favorite slasher movies? And then we each pick a couple movies, and yeah, we just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I kind of do the same thing because besides doing these type of ones, I'll sometimes have a group discussion where we tackle maybe either one big specific topic or we each pick a topic and go around and do
Mhm,
that. And I
mhm.
find those to be extremely fun because essentially it's just a bunch of people talking about horror and just it's about as close you can get to all of us just sitting in the same room and having a few drinks or whatnot, talking shit
Yes,
or whatever.
absolutely.
But
For
but
sure.
I guess this is the cool thing about this type of platform, YouTube, is being able to reach
Mhm.
people not just all over the country but all over the world, obviously, because I've had people from England on before and
Yep.
hope to have some
Yeah.
more down the
It,
road.
it can be a challenge with the time difference, but
Oh yeah.
we make it work. We've done two interviews with directors in Australia, which
Oh
was
wow.
quite cool because it was, for them it was the next day. I think it was like 6 p.m. for me on a Saturday, so 11 p.m. for Ben, and then 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning for the directors in Australia. And they were good sports to get up super early to do it. But even California time for us is a challenge because it's 3 hours before me, and then Ben is 8 hours ahead.
Oh yeah.
So, but like I said, we make it work. I often joke and say the damn time difference is killing us, but it is what it is.
Yep. But Yeah, so that's really cool, and you guys have developed a good following over the last couple of years. Um, so when did your love of horror begin for you? What was your gateway to horror?
Gosh, that's a good question. We're going way back. So I've always loved horror movies as a kid. Growing up in the '80s, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all the big ones. Um, but the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is Michael Jackson's Thriller video
Hmm.
because I loved it, and it also terrified me. I was so little when I watched it. I remember waiting for it to come on MTV, and when it would come on, I would go and get my grandmother um, to come and watch it with me because it scared me, but I could not watch, and I loved it. Um, the other film that isn't a horror film that also terrified me was the Who's Tommy, specifically the Tina Turner Acid Queen scene.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I was like, this is terrifying, and I love it. And then, of course, I started watching the classics, Halloween, Exorcist, all those films. And gosh, back in the day, I remember the USA Channel used to air horror movies all day on Saturday. It was like Captain USA, I think the host was called. I don't know if you remember that at all.
A little bit, yeah.
But friends of mine, we'd all get together on the weekends and just watch the horror movies. We talk about the Friday the 13th films, like which is the best film, what did we think was going to be in the next sequel, things like that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've always loved horror movies, and I still do to this day. I've got to ask you, how did you get into horror movies?
Well, first, before I answer that, you are the second guest that I've had on here that has
Yeah.
mentioned Michael Jackson's Thriller as their gateway. Way back,
No way.
my
That's funny.
second episode of Horror Hangouts was with
Hmm.
Canadian author Carrie Legui, and that was her gateway. So I find that interesting that you're now the second person that has listed that music video as your gateway, kind of.
Oh yeah,
But
Michael
to
Jackson was so
answer
cool then. As a little kid, man, that was so cool. Anyway.
But to answer your question, it happened. I was 5 years old.
Hmm.
I grew up in this small city of Indiana, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and like back then, this is probably 1979 ish.
Okay.
And every back then, every city had their own little local television station that was just kind of like an independent station, if you remember. And
Hmm.
this one in particular, channel 55, every Friday night would have some old classic horror movie come on at like whatever 10:30 at night.
Oh, cool.
And the first night, and of course, they had like this host, like a lot of them did, some generic horror host. This guy was like dressed up all in black and all that stuff. Well, the first movie that I saw was 1931's Dracula with Bela Lugosi,
Nice.
and ever
Hmm.
since then, it opened the floodgates, and it's like I steadily kind of worked my way up the ladder through all the old Universal films, got into all those 1950s
Yep.
Godzilla films, uh,
Hmm. Of course.
started watching some of the Hammer films of the 60s to some of those
Hmm.
really bad B movie creature features like I forget, Land of the Ants or giant ants or stuff, movies like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And it just got progressed. I remember along the way, and I always tell like people who want to know what should I get my kids started on, and I always say the Disney version of you remember the Ichabod Crane
Oh yeah.
little
Yes.
Disney short.
With.
I always said that's a perfect one too, because I remember being a big fan of
Hmm.
that whole story,
Oh yeah, I
and
love that too.
then before
There's the
long,
cartoon one, and then the live action one with Jeff Goldblum, which is
I
great too.
was gonna say that not too many people remember that one, but I remember seeing that on television.
Oh, that was
Um,
great.
and I don't even know if you can find. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube or somewhere, but it's nothing that you hear a whole
Yeah.
lot about. I remember also, oh, was it Dark Night of the Scarecrow, which was a
Hmm.
made-for-TV movie on
Hmm.
CBS,
Oh, I love
and
that. That's such a great film. Yeah.
I can't say that it necessarily terrified, but it did disturb me a little bit, and I've
Hmm.
revisited it recently, watched that, and it's every bit as good now
Oh,
as
sure.
it was back then, which is saying something for a movie
Hmm.
that came out in 1980, 81, I think,
Yes,
probably.
absolutely. Yeah, I just rewatched it a year or two ago. I did pick up a copy of the sequel as well, but I don't think that one is as good. Um,
I've heard it's not
but
very good, so I've never watched it.
yeah,
And so, like I said, it was
yeah.
just a steady progression, and then before you know it,
Mhm.
I've seen Jaws, which is like
Yes.
the ultimate
Oh,
creature
classic.
feature,
Yep.
and
Hmm.
then one Halloween night, uh, it was I was probably 13, so this is probably about 1987. I think it was
Okay.
WGN from Chicago had back to back Halloween and Halloween 2. And that
Oh,
was
nice.
like my big awakening to, I guess that was my big transfer into modern horror now at this point. And then it
Hmm.
was like a
Hmm.
few months later, I saw Alien. And then the following year, I had seen Hellraiser, which is my
Oh,
favorite of
classic.
all time. And
Yeah,
then I
such a
remember
great
even
film.
sneaking in, it was like a couple days after Christmas, I snuck in the theater to see Hellraiser 2. I bought a ticket to like some, I don't know, some
Oh
PG
gosh.
Christmas movie and snuck in to see that.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, it's so funny you mentioned that. I was just telling somebody recently, my cousin and I tried to go see Shocker in the theater, Wes Craven's film, and
Oh, yeah?
Look Who's Talking was playing, and so we bought tickets to see Look Who's Talking, which is the Bob Clark film, which is
Right.
strange that he did Look Who's Talking. Um, and they caught us, the people who worked at the theater. They're like, "No, that's not the movie you're going to see," and they escorted us into Look Who's Talking. So instead of seeing Shocker, we had to watch Look Who's Talking on the big screen.
Oh, wow. I had,
Yeah.
and see, prior to that, I think it was, well, yeah, October of '88, I did go
Mhm.
see my first horror movie in a theater was Halloween 4, and
Nice.
I was 14 at the time, and I'm just, I decided, well, I'm just gonna go there, see if I can get a ticket, see if they card me or not. They didn't, so I went in
You
there
got him.
and saw
Yeah.
that movie. And of course, before one of the trailers before Halloween 4 was for Hellraiser 2, which I'd seen on
Mm.
VHS earlier that year. I'm like, oh, I've definitely got to see this, but I have a feeling they're going
Yeah.
to card me for this one. So I'm going to have to come up with a plan to see this one in the theater. But yeah, and
Yeah.
the rest is
Oh, it
history
was a
really
real
from
it was
there.
a real challenge getting into some of those movies. I remember my mother taking a buddy and I to the local movie theater to get us into Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which
Hmm.
I'm actually wearing this shirt, ironically.
Well, I see I
Um,
got my Hellraiser on, so
oh, of course, nice. And she went up, so we went up to the ticket stand, and she's like, "I don't want to see the movie, but I'm giving permission to my son and his friend who were like sixth grade, 12, 13." And they're like, "No, you have to go in and watch the movie with them." So, the compromise though, she's like, "Well, I'll take you to the video store and you can pick out anything you want." And I remember asking even Children of the Corn. She's like, "Yes, fine." And that's what we rented. So I don't know, win-win
awesome.
maybe, lose-win.
Yeah,
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah,
takes
I
me back.
remember a few months ago I went to the Days of the Dead Horror Con in Las Vegas
Oh, very cool.
and met Ashley Lawrence, who played Kirsty in Hellraiser, and I had
Oh,
told her the
nice.
story about how I snuck in the theater
To get
to
in to
see
see
her
it.
movie, but she thought that was awesome. So
Oh, that's so cool. I hope to meet her one day. There are a couple of conventions coming up in September in Massachusetts, but I'm not sure if she's on the list. I'll check. And speaking of Hellraiser,
mhm.
Doug Bradley was just in Salem, Massachusetts, 2 weekends ago at a local, I think a brewery they had him. Um,
Oh wow.
I met him a couple years ago, but I thought it was cool that he was coming into town.
He's one I've yet to meet there, so it's like I've met some of my favorite, like, I guess, final girls or whatnot. I've met Ashley Lawrence,
Mhm.
Heather
Nice.
Langenkamp. I've met Daniel Harris.
Yep.
I've met Dee Wallace as well, who's kind of like, I think,
Oh,
one of the
cool.
queens of
Yes.
horror
Yes.
women. And
Yeah, I reached out to her agent to see if she'd do an interview, but they never wrote back. So,
I
but
haven't gotten the
you
guts
never
or
know.
this. I've never gotten the balls enough to ask anyone that big before, but
Well, I figure I was like, Ben, what does it hurt? Let me just ask. But
that's true. But
maybe one day, maybe one day. Dee, if
maybe
you're
one
watching,
day.
we'd love to do an interview. Both Josh and I, and Ben, of course.
Oh
We would
yeah,
love to do an interview with you.
of course.
The legend.
But Doug Bradley is definitely someone I would love to meet just to say hello and get his
He was
autograph and go from there.
he was very chill, soft spoken, easygoing guy. It was cool.
Yeah, true. And I just saw a movie of his because you just think of him as Hellraiser, but he has done other horror movies.
Hmm.
There's a movie that came out about probably about a year ago called The Exorcists, plural, not to be
Mhm.
confused with The Exorcist. And you know what? It's a pretty damn good movie,
Good.
really,
I haven't
for
heard of
being
it. I'll
it's
have to
on
check it
Amazon
out.
Prime for free.
Okay.
So,
Hmm,
and I'm like,
cool. I'll give it a watch.
for the people that were like maybe disappointed with the last Exorcist movie, I say, well,
Yeah.
give this one a watch. I think you'll actually like it, even though it's a much
Mm,
lower budget film. It's Grant, there's only so much you can do with that whole concept, but they do it pretty well there. So it's like, well,
mm.
there's a movie that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. And well, there was another movie that was out recently that was loosely based on the filming of The Exorcist. Like the name escapes me, which I thought was promising at the time, but then the reviews weren't very kind, so I haven't seen it. You know
Yeah,
what I'm talking about? I can't remember the name of the movie.
I couldn't think of it because so many of those different types of movies come out, so they kind of get muddied. It was just that this one happened. I knew it happened to have
Yeah,
Doug
yeah, okay.
Bradley in it, so I'm gonna
That's cool.
watch
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The one I'm talking about had Russell Crowe in it.
Oh, well, there was the Pope's Exorcist that he did about a
No,
year ago,
it was just
but
at the
now he's
theater like
done
a
a
couple
different
months
one. I don't know
ago.
if it's a sequel or what to that, but
I think the son or the daughter, I forget who directed it. The actor who played Father Karras in the original Exorcist,
oh,
it's
okay.
his the father. It's his kid who directed the movie. But anyway, I haven't seen it, so I have nothing really else to say about it. Sorry.
Okay. Ah, that's all right. I mean, sometimes I watch so many other movies, they all kind of bleed together, so I have to stop and think what that one was about.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So do you have like a particular favorite horror movie or movies that are like, the top of your list, ones that you always like to watch once or twice a
Sure.
year?
Absolutely. So my favorite is Halloween, the original. I have a little bit of a Halloween shrine right there behind me.
Mm-hmm.
It's one movie. Well, it's my favorite movie, and it's one movie that I have multiple editions of. So I have
Oh wow.
import. I think I have 15 copies, maybe. Like I have an Italian import. I've got a French steelbook, media books, DVDs, VHS. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan. You can't really see it, but it's right
No, I'm sure.
there. Um, but
Yeah.
but but gosh, I love the classics. I love the first Friday the 13th. I love Hellraiser, like you said, Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm a huge fan of Mute Witness. It came out in the 90s. Arrow Video just put out a 4K edition of it. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, check that out. Um, big on the 80s, like some of the sci-fi horrors too. The Alien, of course, of the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like Night of the Creeps is always fun. Night of the Comet is fun.
Oh yeah.
Um, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a blast. Fright Night's fantastic. Um, I'm just kind of thinking through what my top 10 movies would be. But to answer your question, Halloween is my favorite. And I guess I can't put it back on you because you already said Hellraiser is your favorite movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's true. But and those two particular franchises have always been kind of like my favorite. It's hard for me to say
Mhm.
what franchise overall is my favorite. I'd probably give a slight edge to Hellraiser, even though, well, both series have, in my view, have their share of stinkers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I go off the say 5 or 6 movies that I actually like in each series,
Mhm.
that alone is pretty strong. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
But with
Yeah.
Halloween, so what was it about Halloween you think that made you just fall in love with that?
It's kind of interesting that when I was a kid, it wasn't my favorite movie. But then as I got older, especially in college, I revisited it and it blew me away. I was like, "This movie is fantastic," because it's kinda slow, I think, as a
Hmm.
little kid, I just didn't get it as much, but now it's perfectly written, it's perfectly cast, the pacing is amazing, it's one of those movies, I think, where the stars just aligned and everything came together, and that's why it's such a classic, and it's still just as good today as it was back in 1978. As a kid, I would probably say the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were my favorite films at the time.
Hmm.
But I mean, I still love them now.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, everything, like I said, the stars aligned. I think with that film, and it shows.
Yeah, and then they made damn near almost the absolute perfect sequel with Halloween 2
Oh yes, okay.
because
I'm like, oh no, where's he going with this? But yes, part
but
two
like
is fantastic.
like Hellraiser 1 and 2, Halloween 1 and 2 is like basically one continuous story
Yes.
just divided into two different parts, and they
Hmm.
just work so well together. You can't watch one without watching the other
Yes.
almost. And
Yep. I agree with that. Um,
two obviously
if
amps it
you
up
had
a
to,
little bit, but then a lot
of
it's a lot
course,
more bloodier, of course. But
which one do you like most if you had to choose between the two?
between
One,
what Halloween and
Hellraiser.
Halloween,
No, no, no. Hellraiser 1 and 2.
uh,
I'm just flipping back to your favorite
I would
movie.
go a slight edge to the original.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
that's
me
not to
too. I
say I
think.
don't love the two. Two's a perfect continuation. It does
Oh, it's so
everything
good.
you want. Everything it gives you everything you want out of a
Mm,
direct sequel. You expand the universe a little bit. It's a little bit more bigger and broader. But the first
mhm.
one is just so. I like the simplicity of it at first because it's basically just one setting. It's this old
Okay.
English house. Even though they
Mhm.
pretend they're in America, we know damn well they're not. If anyone knows architecture, um,
Yeah.
and it just from the very start of that movie to the end, it's just a real disturbing tone to it. Even
Mhm.
in something as simple as Kirsty and her dad eating in that little restaurant, you still feel like
Yeah.
something bad is going to happen at any given second.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
and I think she's like the perfect final girl for me anyway. I
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Cool.
well, you look
Uncle
at this.
Frank and Julia. Not a nice pair.
No, no, and they're really the true villains of this. And in
Of course.
October, you'll be nice to know I will probably be having a discussion video strictly on the entire Hellraiser franchise, and I've got a lot of thoughts on
Ah,
on
very
that.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'll have to
Um,
tune in for that.
well, I'd
The
like,
so
but
I would say with Hellraiser, after the third one, kind of goes downhill, but the one with is it Hellworld with Lance Henriksen? That one's
yeah,
actually pretty good. I enjoyed that one. It was good sort of standalone film, great cast.
I
I
kind of
like
look
it.
at. I actually like the fourth one, Bloodline, probably a lot more than other people do.
Okay.
Just because it gives a perfect ending. It's really how the series should have just ended right there because you give the whole
Mhm.
backstory to the box and how it was built and the
True.
whole bloodline. I actually like that. And then after that, the reboot I liked, the one
I was
that
just
came
going
out
to
a couple
ask, what did
years.
you think about that? That was pretty
Um,
good. It's Netflix,
it
right?
it was good. It could have
Yeah.
been. I wanted it to be more brutal than what it was. There were too many cutaway kills
Mhm.
where it looks like someone's going to get killed and then it's like off screen. And I wanted a little bit more of it, but it gave me what I wanted for decades now, a good Hellraiser movie.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, I hope they do more. That would be cool.
they've talked about,
Yeah.
I've always said this and I've been saying this for 20 damn years. I want to see, um, I want to see David Cronenberg direct a Hellraiser movie,
Mm.
either him or his son, because
Yeah,
their
yeah.
main thing is body horror to begin with. They don't play around when they want to do something screwed up.
Oh,
They're going to
agreed.
do something fucked up,
They
and
would do
they'd be
something
perfect.
crazy with that.
That's the only
Yeah.
problem with the reboot. I thought it played it a little safe, and I didn't like any of the human
Oh,
characters,
it was Netflix.
basically.
Netflix,
But
right? Yeah.
Hulu,
Netflix tends. Was it? I thought it was Netflix.
it went
Was
straight
it?
to Hulu. Yeah, it
Oh, it
should have
was
been
Hulu. Oh,
should
okay.
have gotten a theatrical release, but
Maybe I'm thinking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
that's what it
Was
Texas
that
Chainsaw.
Netflix?
That
Okay.
was Netflix, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Cool. I'm totally digressing and leading you astray from your questions.
Ah, not at all.
Yeah. That's
I'm
okay.
great at digressing.
All right. Cool.
Well, and we may have touched on some of these already. I did,
Mm.
but what are some horror movies you think are underappreciated? That horror movies that don't get talked enough about that should.
Gosh, I love Humongous from the '80s. That one
Hmm.
doesn't get enough attention. What comes to mind? He Knows You're Alone is a great slasher. I think Tom Hanks has a small part in that one. Oh gosh, Alone in the Dark is a good one.
Okay.
With the Scream Factory edition that came out maybe a year or two ago, I think brought has given it some more attention to it. That's a fun one. And Mute Witness, I love. I think the 4K release, I already mentioned this, the 4K release is giving it some of the attention it deserves. And I also love Session 9. I think that deserves more attention as well. I don't know if you've seen Session Nine. Great,
No, no, these
scary little film. I love it.
I'm gonna have to like replay this part there and start writing down. I already have a watch list about this long to get through, but right now I'm like going through all my old favorites, and then I'll get back to watching all the. That's the thing about horror.
The
It's I bet you I'm wondering if they're I bet you horror has probably produced more movies in that genre than any other genre I can think of, because it just seems like
Mhm.
it's endless. Probably because there's so many different subgenres of horror. You have
Oh, of course, yes,
slashers, vampires,
absolutely.
supernatural, werewolves,
Hmm.
zombies,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
I
paranormal.
highly recommend Session Nine. Add it to your
Okay,
list. Great film. Saw it in the theater. It came out, I think, in 2001. Blew me away. I love it. And Mute Witness. Mute Witness, if you haven't seen it, excuse me. Another great film.
okay, awesome. Well, yeah, that's quite a few. I have my group too. I've always liked to. Well, I just talked about The Exorcist, but another one is a movie called
Hmm.
Stake Land. Don't know if
Oh,
you've
the
seen that one.
vampire film. I have, yes.
Yes,
Vampire
it's
film,
kind of
right?
like
That's
a
cool.
best way I would say it's like a vampire. It's like vampires, kind of like a
Reading, right?
post-apocalyptic vampire
Hmm.
film.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
Cool.
like The Walking Dead, only with vampires almost. So that's
Hmm.
one I always like to champion. And
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
we
Cool.
were talking about, well, Ashley Lawrence earlier, a movie that she did called Lightning Bug, which not a lot of people can have seen, and it's one that shocked her that I saw it when I mentioned it to her. But it's
I've never heard
not
of it.
It's you can only find it on YouTube. I actually bought a copy, DVD copy off of eBay. It's not
Hmm.
so much a horror film, but it's a movie about a horror fan. So it's something that's
Okay.
really relatable to any horror fan. It's loosely based on a true story. It's about this young kid who's growing up in rural Alabama and basically has dreams of being a makeup artist and special effects artist in horror movies. And it's little bit more of a coming of age drama, but there are horror elements. So I think any horror fan can get behind it. It also stars the girl who played Donna in that '70s show is also in it.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I'll look it up. Awesome.
And
Um,
I'm sure there's a
okay.
million others I can't think of offhand, but they'll come
Yeah,
to me
some
later.
others. Girl School Screamers is a fun one. The Severed Arm I love is a '70s film that people don't talk about. Yeah, I don't know. I could go on. They'll come to me right as we talk, but I'll leave it
House
at
of
that.
House of the Devils, one that well, that one's getting a lot more love. That was like Ty West, I think,
That's Ty
first
West.
film.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
There's
one.
one that's similar to
The,
that, that's
the
called The Sitter,
Innkeepers.
Innkeepers,
Oh,
yeah. Have you seen The Sitter?
I no, but someone has told me about it on multiple
Might
occasions. I can't find a
Probably
copy
me.
of it.
I might
Was
have
it
did
you?
something I
Maybe it
might
was
put
you.
something
I
out on
can't
Insta
remember.
it's called something else because it's an English film, came out in 2017 in England. I can't remember what the title is, but here in the
Okay.
US it's called The Sitter. It's on Tubi. It has some similar themes to House of the Devil. So if you liked House of the Devil, this
All
is
right, I'll
one
check
that
it
you
out.
would probably like.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
Thanks for the recommendation.
yeah, so there's one right there.
Cool.
So with here's something, this was just a random fun question I wanted to throw out there. You
Hmm.
know, sometimes we have horror crossovers. It all started with Frankenstein meets the Wolf Man. We've had
Yeah.
Godzilla versus King Kong, a couple different versions of that. And of course, we had Jason versus Freddy. What's a horror movie crossover you'd like to see?
Gosh, that's a good question. I'm thinking about some of the major villains. Um, I also happen to be looking at my Pennywise Funko right across the room.
Hmm.
So wouldn't it be cool to have Pennywise and Art the Clown in the same film? That would be
That's an
fun.
interest. A friend of mine and a frequent host on here, Alistair, once brought up Art the Clown and Victor Crowley from the Hatchet series.
Oh yeah, well, that'd be good. Or maybe
It's
the
like
Killer
two,
Clowns go with the clown theme. But yeah, yeah,
yeah. If
I
you
could see
wanted
that.
to keep it, well, yeah, just because of the most brutal and over the top kills, I'm like, yeah, I could
Yes,
probably
yes,
see that. But
yeah.
yeah, Art the
I'm
Clown
also
and
looking
Pennywise.
at Chucky. How about Chucky and the Puppet Master dolls,
Mm,
like the original ones? That would be fun. Like Chucky and what is it? Pinhead. the Driller. Um, what are the Puppet Master dolls?
I
There's like
can't remember all their
the
names.
Leech Woman. I like Six Shooter. I think he's from part three, but he's got like the six arms and guns in each one.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and who's the guy with the big like muscles?
It's been so long
Ah,
since I've seen that movie.
I can't think of it.
See, I was thinking with Chucky,
Hmm.
what's the one that came out? Megan?
Oh yeah, yeah. Megan and Short Circuit. Johnny Five and
Oh,
Megan.
there you go.
That would be fun, right? Or Megan and Abigail, the new movie that just came out, which is basically a Megan but with vampires.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that could work too.
Yeah. Oh, we could go on for hours.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
cool.
I-
That was a fun question.
Well, you know that decade shortly after Jason versus Freddy came out, there were
Hmm.
rumors that this was almost going to happen. They were going to have a Halloween Hellraiser crossover. And from what I've
Mm.
heard about it is Clive Barker was on board to write it
Yep.
and Carpenter was going to direct. It was like one of those things
Oh,
where
cool.
remember at the time Dimension had the movie rights to both of those franchises
Hmm.
and Barker was like, "Well, I'll write it if Carpenter directs it." Carpenter was like, "Well, I'll direct it if Barker writes it," because I don't think either one of them really gave a shit about the movie. They just wanted to work together. But for
Yeah.
one reason or another, studio politics, it never happened. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious what they would have came up with between the two
Mm.
of them, and because they're two different types of horror movies, so it'd been interesting how they could have blended that together. It would have been interesting.
Well, I could see that working because with Freddy versus Jason, right? Jason doesn't speak, but Freddy does. So Freddy does all
Hmm.
the talking. Similar, right? Pinhead talks, but Michael Myers never says anything. Um, that's tough, though, right? Having a villain who doesn't speak.
You can do some things. I wrote when I first started writing. I wrote for the fun of it. I just wrote like a little fan fiction story that wasn't going to do anything with it, and
Hmm.
I wrote a Hellraiser Halloween crossover, and the bare bones of it basically it pretty much it's we see Michael as still a kid in Smith's Grove,
Okay.
and there's another doctor, and it's Dr. Chenard, actually a young Dr. Chenard, who gives Michael a box, and instead of the box destroying him, it makes him it's like the Leviathan
Oh, so
realizes
he opens the
he's
box. Okay,
he's
okay.
pure evil, so
Mm.
therefore instead of destroying him, he's going to basically enhance his evil and makes him stronger, so that establishes the link between Michael Myers
Cool.
and the box is kind of like what I went with it.
Well, maybe one day.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Not that anyone's going to ask me for any ideas, but and then it goes on the other side of it. Kirsty and Tiffany become psychiatrists and they intern at Smith's Grove where they meet Dr. Loomis, who's their mentor, and they introduce them to Jamie because in my story it's going off of Halloween 4, who's now a patient at Smith's Grove, and that's what kind of brings that part of it together. So that's kind
Cool.
of like how I went with it.
Cool. Well,
But
we'll
that's
see.
just
See.
that was
Yeah.
just
No,
me
I hear you.
messing
That's
around.
fun. Fun to put it together.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure Michael Myers is not done. We'll be getting more movies or
Well,
series.
they're
They've been
talking
talking
about
about.
a
So,
TV series, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
we'll see.
Mhm.
I know they
I'll watch.
talked about with Friday the 13th, and I'm like, either give us
Yeah, I
a
heard they
good
scrapped
movie.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just well, the
they
budget
scrapped
they
the
were
idea.
putting on it was just insane. This insane TV budget for something that doesn't need a big budget really to be successful. And
Mm,
I don't know. I would just assume if they're not going to make a good movie, just don't make it. It's like way I look
yeah.
at it. I love the remake that came out in 2009. So if that's the final one they ever do, great. That series ends on a
Yeah.
good note
Hmm.
and move on
We're
to
getting a
something else. But
4K edition from Arrow. I don't know if you've seen the artwork. Looks amazing.
I heard
Um,
about that on another channel.
yeah, check out the artwork. Looks really nice. I already pre-ordered a copy. I can't wait.
Hmm.
And with the Friday the 13th series, I heard they were going to do a prequel, which I thought was kind of cool because it could have focused on the mother. Like,
Hmm.
she worked at the camp, so it could
Right.
have been the summer her son drowned, and then that's when she started killing people before the movie. We know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's
We'll see.
pretty much
They
seemed
they,
seemed to be the
they
ideas they were going with.
yeah, they said that they scrapped it though. They went back to the drawing board. So I don't know what, if anything, I don't know what'll happen now.
Well, I wonder too is how many episodes do you really need of focusing on Pamela Voorhees? In that
Mm,
we already know her backstory, kind of.
it's
Do we
true.
need how much more do we need of it? And is there enough for a full season of shows of 8, 9, 10 shows? Eventually, I see the fans saying, "Okay, this is great, but let's see
This is
Jason now."
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then think of the possibilities. So like the first shows, if they did it as a prequel, they could focus on the counselors. They could have
Mhm.
campers. Um, I don't know. I think it'd be good. And then season two could continue on after the first one. Or anyway,
Yeah.
we'll see. No one's asking me for my opinion
No,
either. But
nor
we'll see
me.
what we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll watch
It
whatever
just
comes
it
of it.
just kinda, like, boggles mind we can come up with I'm hearing also that
Mm,
movie studios don't wanna make it, so they don't think it's gonna be profitable, and I'm like, "Really? You're talking about a movie that only requires a fairly minimum budget, million, $2,000,000, and
yep.
every single one has made money. It's
Hmm.
going to you release one in the theaters, it's gonna blow the
Oh
box
my god,
office up
absolutely. A new
versus."
Friday the 13th would
Yeah.
be killer. It would make a ton of money. I mean, look at some of the long legs made a ton at the box office. I just saw Oddity in the
Mhm.
theater, which is fantastic. I loved it. The same Damien McCarthy, who directed Caveat, did Oddity.
Uh-huh.
Huge fan. Um, I can't think of any other movies that I've seen recently at the theater, but horror is the thing. I've heard that the studios are focusing on horror now because it's what's making the most money at the box office.
Well, see, yeah, then that's the thing. I mean, you've seen some of these, say Disney, Warner Brother movies that they're spending 100, $200 million on, and they
Mhm.
wonder why they're flopping anymore. It used to be those type of
Yeah,
movies would
it was
bank.
a sure thing, and I don't mean horror is making the most. It's making a lot of money for low
It's,
budgets, like you
I
said.
think I think like profit margin wise, if you went by
Hmm.
percentage, they're making
Hmm.
pretty good. So
Yeah,
it'd be great to still see more horror movies getting released in the theaters, whether or not that happens, we
yeah.
still get them.
Well,
A24 seems like everything they make goes straight to the theater, and same with
yep, yep.
Blumhouse.
Well, Terrifier 3, I think, will make a killing.
Oh, yeah.
Thanksgiving, Eli Roth's film made a lot. Well, it did well. I think it did well. Um, yeah, so we'll see. Very exciting, though. I'm looking forward to the rest of the movies coming out this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Nosferatu movie that's gonna be
Oh,
coming out,
yeah, that looks cool.
I think on Christmas Day is when it's coming out, or the day
That's what I've
after,
heard. Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
I
an
think so.
odd thing, but,
Hmm.
I think it'll do well even if it is on Christmas, because 'cause they're gonna be those people that are either Christmased out and
Yeah.
want something different, and given the fact that it's Robert Eggers directing it, Bill
Hmm.
Skarsgård's in it. I think Willem Dafoe's also in it. You know,
It'll be
people will
great.
go see that.
Yep, I'll see that. I'm looking forward to Cuckoo. That looks pretty good. Romulus, of course. Betty
Mhm.
Alvarez. I can't wait for that. Terrifier 3. Yeah, some good movies to look forward to. There
Oh,
and the
yeah.
reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer sounds appealing too.
Okay. Yeah, I think I heard that, Chris. All right, we'll see how that one does. I mean,
See how it goes. Yeah,
I get a little bit every once in a while, I get a little bit tired of remakes and reboots, but,
this is.
you
I
know,
think this will be cool though. Jennifer Love Hewitt's supposed to be back. And I don't know. I'll check it out.
okay. I know, like, in
Cool.
the 2000s, we had that string of a whole bunch of remakes came out, and most of them were
Mm,
pretty good, and then for some
yeah,
reason, another
House of
wave has come
Wax.
out. Yeah, that was worth watching just to see Paris Hilton get killed.
Such a good movie.
But the Friday the 13th remake was good. I liked
Yeah,
the
I
Rob
like that
Zombie
one too.
Halloween films.
Hmm.
The Texas
Same
Chainsaw
here.
Massacre remake was
Oh,
good.
fantastic! One of my favorite remakes. Um,
Uh,
The Evil Dead. I mean, well, that's arguably a continuation and not a remake, but I still think of it as a remake. So that
Night of
was
the
in the early
Demons is
2000s.
the one I like too. The Night of the Demons remake.
With is it Shannon Elizabeth in that?
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, to be
Oh,
honest.
Edward Furlong.
Oh
Um,
yeah, maybe I have. I don't know.
Monica Keena plays the lead girl.
Okay.
That one I actually liked a little bit better than the original, actually, and I love the original, but that one I liked a little bit better.
Wow, crazy talk. Okay,
Well, it's
I'll
because
have to watch it.
I think it's because in the original I couldn't stand the lead girl. She was almost too prissy and fussy that I'm like,
Mm.
"Ugh," but
Um,
that outside of that, it was
Kin
a great movie.
Kincaid, right? I can't think of her first name.
Think so. It's just she was like
Her last name is Kincaid, and of
constantly
course
whining.
Linnea Quigley.
Right, right. That's one of her more famous roles.
Yeah,
Like
interesting
probably
where
her
she
most
stores her lipstick. Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Scene that will live in infamy almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably like the very last scene in Sleepaway Camp,
Mm. Hmm.
the big reveal. And I often wonder if not for
Yeah,
that,
Angela's got a big secret. Go ahead.
yeah. I often wondered if not for that movie ending in the way it did, if it would be as popular as it is today. Sleepaway
Mm.
Camp.
Well, certainly got people's attention. I
That's
mean,
for
yeah,
sure.
is it a good movie? It's a classic, sure, but if you watch it, it's a little bit all over the place. But I don't know. It's a fun film. I'm a fan.
Oh, another
Didn't
one from that.
I didn't see that coming. I'll say that again.
Nope, me neither. Because they kind of like they made you think, and this is where it was well written.
Yeah.
They made you think that, well, yeah, this the boy is the one that died, and it was the girl who survived from that boating accident, and
Hmm. Nope.
it was a good way to
Yeah.
mess with us a little bit. So that's just an example of how even in a slasher film, good writing can exist. So it's like you don't have to
Hmm.
necessarily write, you know, Ben Hur or anything like that, or
I'm sure.
but as a writer, I kind of have a writer's brain. So when I see something in the story that kind of turns me off, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I understand things in their proper context. You're going to judge a Friday the 13th movie in a different way than you would, say, a movie like Hereditary, for example.
Hmm.
They're both horror, but they're in totally different subgenres. So you expect
Yes.
something different. Your expectations
Different
different from one movie
expectations.
to the other
Absolutely.
one.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. One's more of a smart film. I mean, not that Friday the 13th films aren't smart. You just expect more campiness, let's say, than like a
Exactly.
Hereditary or like a Midsummer kind of film.
Yeah, that's a movie that's kind of grown on me, Midsummer. I find it more watchable than Hereditary for some reason. Probably because I find Midsummer funny in a couple of parts. I
It's
laugh
such a
at
great film. She wins May Queen. It's like, wow.
wait till you see what
Or
that
whatever,
entails.
whatever. She wins the end. Oh my god. I saw that in the theater and I think when it ended it was like we're all just sort of in like stunned silence. Um,
I
good
was
film.
I would have liked to have seen with that a little bit more like they're when they're getting ready to torch the place, they're bringing in all these like people's heads or top of their
Mm,
horses and a plant thing, and like I wanted to see more about how that happened, how they went
yeah,
about killing these people.
yeah.
Um,
Mm.
well, the
That
scene that gets
stays
it.
with you long afterward.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it for the wrong reasons. Like the scene where the guys in, the scene, the whole naked person scene basically where
Yes.
he's having sex with the girl, and
Yep.
when that old lady gets behind him and starts pushing him from behind,
Hmm.
I never laughed so hard in my life.
Oh, yes.
I
Yes.
don't know
Well,
if I'm supposed to laugh.
it's
I
so
don't know if
horrific. It's like you kind of have that reaction to it, right?
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, am I supposed to laugh at this? Because I am. Just like the two old people falling off the cliff because
Oh my
I
god,
saw
yeah.
I saw that coming a mile away anyway because they kind of hinted at it. Well,
Oh,
what
of
happens
course,
when they
yes.
turn 72? Well,
That's
and they
the
think he's
end,
joking,
right?
like, nope. Let's
Yes. Oh my
bring this
gosh.
big mallet. It's not quite dead yet. Whack.
One of the best daylight horror movies, though, I
Hmm.
think I've seen is very good. Very good.
Yeah.
We need more daylight horror movies, I think.
Yeah, we don't get a whole lot. I'm like trying to think, I think that one, and people unfairly compare Midsummer to Wicker Man, which, yeah, they're in the same
Mm,
category, but it's a very different still. But
yeah.
that once again is a daylight horror film. I guess. No,
Yes. Well, let's not talk about the remake, but yes.
oh, I wasn't going to. I wasn't even thinking of the remake. But
Okay, good.
I'm trying to think of another
Cool.
one. Another good daylight horror.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in it.
Mm,
That's in the daylight. I mean, obviously Georgie's death scene that happens during the
it's
day.
true.
Grant's raining
Kind of
out, but
dark and rainy though.
yeah. But I think of the movie. I think the scene where they're in the garage. I mean, this one scene did freak me out when
Mhm.
they got that slideshow going, and I'm talking about the newer it version, and it's
Yeah, yeah, not the
going,
TV
and
series. Yep.
all of a sudden Pennywise starts coming out of the
Mm,
screen there. But that's
very
a bit.
terrifying. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
like one of my favorites. It's like probably my top 5 is the first It movie. It Chapter
The
1, I guess you would call it now.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Okay. 2017. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Good film.
I think The Thing is another one of my favorites. I imagine yours too, the original Thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a classic. Great film.
Yeah, I think about just how great the practical effects were in the 80s and The Thing and, well, Hellraiser as well, and of course
Hmm.
American Werewolf in London and The Howling.
Hmm. Yes, I love them all. Same
Great,
page.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. So
Yeah. Cool.
cool. So, well, we talked about the movies that that you're excited to see. I'm curious to see Alien Romulus. It
Hmm.
looks like it might be a return to form, maybe, because it's supposed to take place between Alien and Aliens. So, be
Yes.
interesting how they do that.
Yep. I
Um,
can't wait to see what Fede Alvarez has done. It looks awesome.
I I try to avoid trailers as much as I can, but
Mm.
admittedly, I did see the trailer for Alien Romulus only because I went and saw um, Deadpool and Wolverine this past weekend, and
Yes,
that was one
it's
of
in
the.
the extended trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to really want to see this. I'm like trying to think of whether or not I want to, because sometimes they spoil things. But
Hmm.
have
Yes.
you seen
Yeah.
Matt?
Some movies I try to avoid the trailers.
But all right, well, so what's new on? I know you guys just said you talked a little bit about Alien on your channel. What else is coming up on the channel?
Let's see. So we've got some interviews lined up. I don't want to talk about those yet, though, because scheduling changes, things change. So I don't want to
Oh,
commit
I've
yet.
learned
But
that
we've
lesson.
yeah, we've got some great interviews coming up. We're looking at doing a couple of new themed episodes. One is lesser known horror movies, and the other is when animals attack. So some killer animal movies. We're going to talk about those too.
Excellent. Well, that sounds wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, good luck on that channel, and I'll make sure to put a link to the channel in the main link to this
Yeah,
video.
please do. Yep. And we're on
Absolutely.
Instagram too. Instagram at AB Horror Movies. And of course, you can find us on YouTube if you search for A&B Horror.
Excellent. We certainly will all look at those. And so, Aaron, thanks for being a guest on today's episode. And best of luck and keep rocking it out the horror
Yeah,
videos.
we sure will. Thank you. This has been amazing. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. We'll see you next time, folks.